All right, we should be live. So,
Cool.
welcome, Sophie and Jens. It's great to talk to you guys. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. Got a nice channel going. So, I heard you say the other day when we were talking before that you've been doing it for just under a year. You're already at 1,000 subs, which is quite an accomplishment to get there that fast. That's really awesome. So, you guys must be doing something right. I've seen a lot of like your news updates. They're very professional. The editing's really good. And it's cool to see
Yeah,
it for sorcery, of course. But do you cover? Do you want to talk a little bit about your channel and talk about kind of like your background and interest in TCGs?
yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we started the channel because we are really excited about TCGs and we kind of figured let's try it out, but we hadn't really expected to get a lot of feedback for it because
Mm-hmm.
clearly we're both Danish. So there's definitely a bit of an accent. So we had kind of expected that might be a challenge, but people have been super nice. We've had a lot of great response and slowly building a really great community, and that's really great because that's actually what we really enjoy is talking with people about nerdy stuff. So it's been really cool to see the channel grow.
Yeah. Did you consider doing a channel in your native language, or does everyone pretty much speak English over there anyway?
Yeah, we kind of considered it at some point, and then we also had some people telling us maybe you should just do it in Danish. But there's not really that many YouTube channels in Danish
Yeah.
around, and those that are, they are mostly just really small and kind of dead. So we thought that if we actually wanted to do something about it and try to succeed, we needed to do it in English, even though it's not
Hmm.
our native language.
Yeah, I saw there was like a pretty decent amount of backers for sorcery in Europe. But what are the big games over there in Denmark and some of the countries in your area?
I think it's pretty much like the same as the big three. So Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yeah.
Pokemon, and Magic. That's pretty much it. There's not a lot of like local variation here. It's sort of the big three that's going strong. And
Hmm.
yeah, so we always kind of wanted a bigger audience. And then we kind of think that we just practice our English and hopefully it'll work out.
Yeah, no, it's very good. You guys speak pretty fluent, which is great. A lot of the artists that I work with are not actually fluent in English, so we use translators over Facebook Messenger and things like that. So it's kind of
Oh,
mixed, you know. Some are, some not are not. But so that's cool. So like, are you seeing a lot of the indie games pop up, like the other ones? I guess what Cryptic and what's the other
Yeah,
one? Grand
Cryptic, and I
Archive.
think people are talking about One Piece and Alpha
Hmm.
Clash. Those are some of the games that people are mentioning. But I don't
Yeah.
think our local game store is closing,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Oh.
So our like local environment is sort of like trying to figure out what to do right now.
Yeah. So that's probably challenging for sorcery, I guess. There's only one, basically one local store that's an
Yeah,
option
and
for you.
we're in sort of a smaller city, so
Hmm.
there's basically one, and then there's another one, but that's sort of a side hustle for that person. So he only opens like occasionally.
Okay. So how did you? Let's talk about like sorcery. Like, how do you even hear about it and decide? How did it capture your attention? I guess and your interest.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, but it was mostly you that discovered sorcery. You were just like, I've backed this game, and I think it looks awesome, and it has some of the old school native artists from Magic the Gathering going way back, and it looks really awesome, and has this hand painted art. And I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds great. Let's see if it
Yeah.
actually hits the market and becomes a thing. And then it was just majorly successful in the Kickstarter.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you guys have? Do you have a magic background? Did
Yeah.
Yep.
you already know some of the artists? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We both like played Magic in what'll that be? Sort of like middle school for you guys, I think it is.
Yeah.
And played some Magic back in the 90s and then played sort of
Mm-hmm.
on and off. And when we met each other, we were not playing, but we both had like a tiny Magic collection. And then we
Mm-hmm.
sort of like, got our friends engaged with it and we started back up again and started buying boxes. And we pretty quickly discovered that Magic was not what it used to be. I mean,
Yeah.
the constant releases
Mm.
and the art had changed, and there was just there's a lot of adjustment. And when I saw Sorcery, I'm like, okay, wow, that's some gorgeous art. There's really a focus on taking it slow, getting to know the cards. That really
Mm-hmm.
old cool nostalgia vibe.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I played Magic as a kid too, and this was, I guess, like early '90s. Um, So I was probably, or like a similar around middle school age. Middle school here is typically like either 5th or 6th grade through 8th grade.
Yeah.
So, like pre-teenage or right around like early teens. I was playing with like kids in the neighborhood. But then my first year of high school, my family relocated to another part of the country, another state in the U.S. here. And so I lost all my childhood friends in the process that I played with. So I never played a game of Magic ever again since then. It's been like over 20, 25, I don't know, maybe closer to 30 years now.
Oh no.
So, and then like when I started getting back into TCGs a few years ago, I don't know, it didn't really appeal to me that much. I had no interest of getting back into Magic. And then, but then when Sorcery came along, it was like a similar type deal. I saw it was like a lot of the same, well, at least there's probably, I don't know, several of the original Magic artists from Alpha Magic, and then also like in the subsequent years. So those older vintage like 90s era artists. So that's what first captured my attention, and like the artwork just looked incredible. It's just very striking. When I saw the Seer art by Dan Seagrave, was a big one I was impressed with, and Ancient Dragon. And of course, those two aren't Magic artists, but actually Dan's done like two cards I think for Magic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started recognizing the other names, like Melissa Benson and Jeff Menges and Drew Tucker and everybody. And so like that's what first caught my attention. But then like learning about all the other artists was really exciting because they're bringing something new and different. Like there's a lot of diversity in styles and approaches and stuff. So like the first set feels like a full art collection, unlike most games you see. They're all like very different stylistically. So it makes for a nice, diverse collection.
Yeah, and that sort of, old school feeling that everything doesn't have to, match. Everything can be different, but still cohesive due to the full art and due to the whole, card layout. But everything has its like own specific look. And there's a lot of iconic pieces out there. I definitely think in the future it'll be definitely more iconic as time passes, and people have that sort of nostalgic vibe with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's also, I think it's kind of the appeal for me because, of course, we haven't tried to actually play the game yet, but it has some of the same nostalgia that Magic had, that you could just open up the packs and, well, when you were small, you just enjoyed the art and it was so vivid and it just spoke to you. And I think the art I've seen from Sorcery so far has much of the same appeal to me. And I'm also really happy to see, for example, Melissa Benson being back in the game. I think that's excellent. I loved her art in the early Magic days, her Nightmare or her Lord of Atlantis.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
some really iconic cards for me.
Yeah.
Definitely. So what about you? I mean, how did you sort of get involved with all this art stuff? Because I had written like an introduction for you in case we were hosting it. And I was going to say that you're already becoming one of like the iconic figures within the art scene for Sorcery. So how did you go for just like picking up some art pieces, or did you contact some artists, or how did that happen?
So, like, I first heard about the game, and then I got into the Discord. So I think the Discord was stood up around August of, must have been 2021, I think it was. August 2021. So it's been, like, about a year and a half. And then I joined, like, first week of September, thereabouts, just, like, a few weeks into it. So I was fortunate to hear pretty early on and learned about Eric's background, and Eric was like very active in the Discord at that stage. So
he still had time.
Before the Kickstarter madness started up. So I think I don't know. I just had the idea to like, I wanted to interview the artists, and I wasn't doing like any YouTube. I just started YouTube maybe like 8 to 9 months ago. And I figured like artists are very busy. I was looking on YouTube. I didn't see like a whole lot of artist interviews in video format. Just like a few channels that kind of specialize in that. But I figured it'd be probably easier for the artists to do like written Q&A style. So I decided to like start with a website, and I created that probably in, I don't know, latter part of 2021 or real early part of 2022. And then I was reaching out to a lot of the artists and said like I wanted to interview them. I think I started with actually the first one I did was Truett Parrish, who's like the youngest artist in Sorcery, I think, coincidentally. And then I started doing like a bunch of the Magic artists because that was the initial appeal for me. And then I started expanding beyond that. But I think I've done maybe 15 or 16 written form interviews over the past year and a half. And I figured like if I just submit 10 to 12 questions to the artist, let them get back to me on their own time, and then like a common question I would ask is like, what are your artistic influences? And the written format lended itself well to that, because then I would research all those. Like a lot of those artists, like some of their influences I would have heard of, and others I had not. So I would just start like Googling and learning about these artists, and then I would hyperlink to all those. So, written form creates a nice interactive option for that to kind of like expand beyond that. So that was a lot of fun. And then like I started loving and getting obsessed with the artwork itself. And then so I created this like artist bio page, and I linked all of the social media platforms for all of the artists and a little bit about their background. And then as I was going through their sites, I was finding a lot of the sorcery imagery. And there was some that like Eric was like previewing at that time. And then others I would just stumble upon from their social media. And like in the early days, some artists were calling it Project Atlas. It was like a code name before the name Sorcery was decided. So I was like uncovering some by that, and then others just looked like sorcery like, and but they weren't officially confirmed. So I'd like start asking the artist or like Eric. I was like, hey, is this one in? Is this one in? Is this actually sorcery or not? And it was just a lot of fun. It kind of snowballed, and I built out this Collector Arthouse website with all the like art, the artist interviews, and then like the card listings, because there would be like incremental releases of updated cards. So it was kind of cool to see the design changes over time, which you kind of see in the sample cards, but then you also would see it through several tabletop simulator updates where the cards would change like really significantly, like even the names of the cards, or everything would change except the art, obviously. And actually in some cases I think there were like other artworks like swapped for certain cards. So it makes you wonder if there's going to be some alt arts, and I don't know if there'll be much in beta, but maybe if there's a revise later is what I'm speculating. So yeah, that's how I kind of really got into it, and meeting a lot of the artists and getting to know them pretty well through the interview process, and then just kind of keeping up with it, and eventually getting into video, and then working with them more formally to help kind of promote their brand and sell original paintings and special commissions and things like that. So,
but this is still just like a side hustle. It's not something you're doing full time.
Yeah, no, I have a full-time job, so I just
how are you
nights and
doing all
weekends.
that?
I don't know. Yeah, just kind of like I'm kind of like obsessive over one or two things at a time. I like go all in on it, and I'm like, I don't know. Just when I'm passionate about something, I just find the time and put in the work. After the kids, I have young kids, 8, 5, and 1. So when they go to sleep, I have some time at night. Yeah, or I wake up a couple hours before them, and things like that. I do a lot on mobile, when I get some time away from the family. That's really the only way. I don't get to sit in front of my computer too often.
No, exactly. I pretty much am always on my mobile as well for, different sort of Discord stuff, or just editing videos or something, trying to sort of just find those little spaces of time where you can just work on a little something.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so yeah, go ahead. Were you about to say something? You guys got a list there or something?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
There were a big list of questions to ask you.
Oh, okay.
So we have covered how you got into sorcery. Where do you see this TCG sorcery going in the future? We know there's going to be Arthurian legends for like sort of expansion, but what kind of art do you think is going to be in future sets?
Well, I did like a video about speculating about a heaven and hell or angels and demons type thing, because it looks like, I think it was hinted at in one of the Q&As that the company had done, but there's if you look at like the variety of art in the alpha set, 400, a little over 400 cards, there's like pockets of like thematic things that seem like they'd be perfectly extensible for an expansion set. And like that was actually that was pretty obvious with Arthurian legends as well, when you look at like things like Holy Grail, and there's the Black Knights painting by Brian Smith
sort of thing.
Yeah, there's like certain things that just seems like very fitting, and some of them actually stayed in alpha, which is cool, but then others like I think are pretty likely to slip. Like we don't know the full alpha set yet. There's still 35 cards or so, but I think like we have a pretty good idea of what those will be. So that's like one, and then there's a lot of like devilish type themes and angelic type themes in the across the alpha set too. So I think that could be a possibility. And like clearly, like Eric likes the dark art with artists like Brian Smith and Dan Seagrave, and those are probably the big two that jump out. So it's kind of Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, I'd kind of be guessing. There was a Q&A where someone mentioned something about steampunk, and I know like Elvira Palakowska has done some work in that realm. It's kind of interesting. Like Vincent Pompetti has done a lot of Arthurian legends, so you could kind of look at the portfolio of work of the artists and maybe infer or speculate on like where he could take it based on those artists' talents. I know he's going to add more artists, but I think a lot of the Alpha artists are already working on the next 1 or 2 sets. So maybe that's a place to look for clues. If you go look at their artists' websites and their social media and see what other kind of work they've done, it might lend itself to guessing at some themes. But yeah, it's kind of cool how Alpha doesn't have like a singular theme, but then he's going Arthurian legends, like how Magic did. The Alpha set was generic or not like lore or theme based, but then they had Arabian Nights, I think was their first expansion that had a specific theme. So there's like a lot of Magic influences. And there was like there's this Magic channel that was revived that talks about the history of Magic, and they go to in great detail with the Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited set. So I've actually been taking notes and going through that, and I want to make a video that compares to Sorcery's roots, because there's like so many parallels, it's unbelievable. And I think Eric's like really a student of Magic as a old school Magic player, and is kind of taking cues from that to really capture that old school 90s vibe. Not just Magic, but like D&D, you have D&D artists like Jeff Easley and Alan Pollock and Tony Sudlow and a few others. So yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on themes beyond that? That's my best guess at the moment.
What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know at this moment, but yeah, maybe, the Arthurian legends, of course, are going to come, but maybe we're also going to see some more nature-oriented, maybe some elves or something from the Feywild. If we're going to D&D kind of lore or something like that, that could also be great.
Yeah.
Also because, there's all this grid, kind of play and all these environmental decks and things you can do.
Yeah, and the sites, you could get like a forest that lets you do something interesting. And I think also, that might just be my day job speaking, but like some mythology theme thing, like Roman Greek mythology. There are some Amazons in there. There are some sirens. There are like little hints already in Alpha that someone is very interested in mythology. I don't know if it's Eric specifically, or he just let the artist run with it, but there are definitely some things that could hint to doing like a mythology theme thing, maybe even Norse mythology. That would be really cool as well.
So fun because Dogla and Sean Scully just mentioned those.
Cool.
Those
Viking themed. Yeah, I'd love to see that. That'd be really cool. But I think, with Arthurian lore, there's opportunities for forest type things. I think I probably mispronounce it, but the Brocéliande forest, I think it's called. There's like a French forest or a forest in France where there's like a lot of Arthurian lore stem from, and actually Séverine Pignot is from that area. So she knows that very well, and she's already done like some art in that realm outside of sorcery, and she's kind of like a nature artist as it is. So she'd be a slam dunk for that. And there's a lot of great like landscape artists. Those Atlas cards are awesome. They're all great in their own way.
Yeah, and I mean, even though it's just such a little detail, the whole thing about having them in the landscape format really lends itself well to sort of those landscape artists being able to build something different. So it would be really cool to see something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Also because landscapes are just so iconic. I think we all have maybe a favorite mana from the original Magic set. I remember just loving the mountains and the forests, and I could just spend days just looking at those mana, and maybe it's something that gets lost at some point, because now, even though we have this great art, you kind of get more competitive when you're building decks and you just skip through lots of the art. So I'm also looking forward to having these curio cards, and being forced a little to really look hard on all the art, so you can just go back and enjoy the cards for being these great works of art that they are.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's a pretty brilliant concept, and like I've seen like a lot of the sample cards. I've done like a lot of auctions of sample cards for like consignment and stuff for people in the community. So like I've noticed, like when I'm looking at the cards, I always discover something new that I didn't even notice looking at the digital version on the screen. Like even this latest one, Land Surveyor, you guys are in the Facebook group, and Melissa Benson chimed in and was like, "Oh, I love that guy like standing on his toes," and that's like something I didn't notice. Like there's the guy on the horse, and then there's like the guy standing next to him, like standing on his tippy toes, trying to see the like the piece of paper he's holding, to like surveying the land, right? And then there's these other couple of figures off to the right that are just like really nicely done by Asi Haikala to kind of balance out the imagery. But there's like very subtle things like that when like you hold the card in your hand, you start looking around more or like when you're playing the game, you're looking at the power level or the mana cost and the game mechanics. So you're like looking at all different aspects of the card by design. Like you have to play the game, and you start noticing things. But yeah, some of the most rewarding thing about like putting in all the effort is people saying that like this is the first time they noticed the artist's name on a card as they're playing a game. Like most times people are like, oh yeah, that's cool, that's awesome, but they kind of take for granted like who did it and kind of their background. So that's kind of like one of the motivating factors for the website and the YouTube channel is talk about the history of not only the game but the artists too and their backgrounds to introduce people to that, and it builds like a tighter connection between game player or collector, whatever people are into, and the artist and the artwork. So.
Exactly. And I think I love the whole concept of like little hidden Easter eggs. I think that's already so nice. It's just brilliant because when you're playing them, you go, oh, okay, I hadn't noticed that detail before. And that's really cool. And that's something that also, the hand painted art is so important because it has a whole, different sort of life and expression to it. So I'm just really happy. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing some cards. We haven't had any cards in hand yet. So we are very jealous of you being able to handle some of those cards.
Yeah, I know. I feel very fortunate that it sent me a few things. It's in the alpha precon decks, like, and there's like a stark difference that I noticed in the alpha precons versus the sample cards. Like the sample cards felt great, but then when you look at the alpha cards, just like the final print looks so good with the color balance and everything. Like you could tell they really put the extra effort and energy into making sure they got that right, and it's really showing. And you mentioned like Easter eggs. So there's Easter eggs like in the art illustration concepts themselves where artists like hide specific elements, in their design. But then I can't recall like another game hiding stuff behind the game mechanic box. And you see that a lot in Sorcery because I assume they knew from the start that there would be a full art version of their card in some form or another. Like I think early on, Eric was definitely undecided about foil cards.
Yeah.
But I think he was always dabbling with the idea of like full art with no text boxes. And it was just a matter of would those be like inserts in the packs, and then ultimately decided those would be the reverse side of the foil cards. But I think the artists created their illustrations with intent, knowing that there would be they would see the full image, so like when the text box was removed, they could play with that and hide something there if they chose to. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on there.
So
like
that's
I say,
like
like
another
a lot of
reason
games
that you want to see those foils so you can also see the full art back.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to be hard to get, but I think they'll be really exciting when people discover those little Easter eggs. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be so much more rewarding when they are to get that. When you actually get them, they're going to be so special. And having this extra feature, able to see stuff that might not otherwise be, discernible. That's great. I think it's going to be really fun, and it's also going to be great for collecting that these foil cards are so rare as they are. So you can really start building your collections and take your time. And speaking of time, do you know how frequently Sorcery is going to release sets?
Well, they said one set per year, but the release cycle is a little hosed up by the delays, I think. So it's what's going to happen in the next year to year and a half is what I'm really curious about, because you got, I don't know, they're saying beta in September now. I think alpha is going to come probably within the next month, let's say roughly by mid-May, I would say is a reasonable guess. And then beta in September, if that timeline holds. And then originally they said Arthurian Legends by the end of 2023, but then that would be another set like coming out that would have to be a few months after beta. I know they're like way ahead on the artwork commissioning on that. I just don't know how far along they are in like game mechanic design and if they want to leverage the community again to do play testing and really still need to iron that out. I think that would probably dictate it, as well as like the printer's capacity to take that on after, because like, when things back up, they also now have to print all those beta cards. Exactly. And I don't know if the order's in that yet. They're doing this pre-order experiment or whatever you call it with Team Covenant to gauge demand, and then they got to turn on the printer to get through that. And if there's a lot of demand and they print a lot of boxes, that could push things back for Arthurian Legends, even if the set is ready. The long pull could be the printer and logistics to get it through fulfillment. So I don't know. I'm guessing probably Arthurian Legends in first quarter of next year, and
Yeah.
then maybe like another set also next year though, and then that mini set at some point in
Yeah,
between.
can you speak a little more about that mini set? Because we haven't heard
Yeah.
much except for, dragons.
Yeah. um, yeah, so it is a dragon theme, and it's so it's being done by Ed Beard Jr. I don't know if you guys remember him from early Magic days. He
He's
did
absolutely iconic.
yeah, he did Nico Bolas, the Elder
Yeah,
Dragon, is
exactly.
probably one of his most famous
From
Magic
the original
artworks.
Legends set?
What's that? Which one?
Was it from the Legends
Yeah,
set?
Legends. I'm pretty sure that's
Oh.
right. Yeah. So it was an early set, and then he but then like he got away from Magic and he became like he got into like airbrush work. So he's done a lot of like airbrushing of like high end cards. Like he's got this Dragon Lord van, and he takes it to like shows and things. But he also does airbrushing for like vintage cars and things like that. Like I know he's done work for like Jay Leno and major celebrities and stuff and he makes a lot of money like outside of the conventional TCG fantasy realm doing that kind of thing. So he's done very well to diversify his career and do well outside of TCGs. So it's kind of cool now he's coming back to sorcery. So I guess Eric just liked his. I mean, everybody loves dragons in a TCG, right? So he figured he's the dragon master. Who better than Ed Bear Jr. to get to do that? And I was talking to Ed about this, and he explains it on his Patreon. I'm in his Patreon too, and you could see him like painting several times throughout the week. He'll do these marathon sessions for like 5+ hours where he's painting these 10 pieces for sorcery one at a time, and it takes like a few weeks because they're very large and there's an incredible amount of detail. Like it's just like stunning how he does it too. He doesn't even use like a reference like a lot of artists does. He's doing it completely from his imagination, and it's just so incredible like how he knows exactly what to do. It just boggles my mind, and it just like looks
Especially on like a
masterful.
huge scale.
Yeah. So there's going to be 10, and it's a concept. He told me that like he came up with like a long time ago, like a narrative of what these 10 characters are, or the 10, like some are actual characters and others I think are more scenic and stuff, but he's got this whole like story behind it, like story concept. And now this is his chance to now like manifest that in a artistic, painting form. But I think there's also, I think he said he's going to work with like a friend of his to do like a written narrative about it as well.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
not
heard
sure if,
something like that. That he
yeah,
was
I don't know
going
if
to
that's
sort of
part of
develop a
sorcery.
story.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like going to be released as a sorcery thing or something he'll do separately, but it's kind of like he's like getting to the latter part of his art career. I don't know how long he'll keep doing it or not, but like it feels like this is his big like
Yeah,
grand
he's
finale
open.
type
Yeah.
masterpiece of like art with these 10 pieces that are just they're like amazing. You guys should really see if you haven't already. He shares like little snippets of them on his social media, but
Yeah, I've seen
the
like
art is
little things here and there, but yeah.
yeah, they're very impressive. It's gonna blow people's minds, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're like going to add his sort of whole idea and about the characters into the game, because right now Sorcery doesn't have a lore per se, but Eric has spoken sometimes in the Discord about maybe, sort of adding lore at some point or adding characters or stories. So that's going to be interesting to see if that's something he's going to do.
Yeah, that would be interesting because he's definitely got like a pretty deep story behind what he's doing. So if Eric could pair that with the game mechanics, like he typically does, that would be really cool. So yeah, I'm sure they're going to collaborate and figure that out in a real cool way. I'm excited to see how it pans out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
But do we know if it's like a mini set with only the dragons, or is it going to be dragons and something else? Do we have any hints to that yet?
The very first one was the Dragon Lord itself, so
Yeah.
it is a dragon. And then some of the others, I've been kind of like I float in and out of his Patreon. Like I say, he does it several times a week, and I can't always attend them all. So there's a few I haven't seen yet, but not every one is like a very specific dragon concept. Like another one is like the lair of the dragon itself. So
Okay,
it's more
yeah.
of like a dragon's lair, like a building, right? And then like this
Maybe like
amazing
a site?
scenic. Yeah, like a site. Yeah, I think there'll be some site. I assume there'll be a mix of site cards and spell type cards or creatures. So it'd be the whole gamut. Yeah, it's pretty
sounds
wild.
great.
Yeah.
Do you know in Sorcery how much do the artists and the game collaborate? Because I saw an interview with Therese Nielsen at one point when she made this iconic art for Force of Will, and she was just told it's going to be a red card, and she just painted something red, and then it became blue. But how closely do Sorcery and the artist collaborate on the art and the gaming cards?
I think they're given just like a very high level description. Like Eric will give them a couple sentences, like very rough idea, and then they have a lot of creative freedom to kind of like come up with their own concept around that short narrative. And it's kind of funny, like if you talk to Eric one-on-one, like he's kind of cryptic in his speaking too. He'll give you like a one-liner or two, and then you got to kind of infer what the hell he's talking about, or like he won't give you the whole story, but it kind of works perfectly. And if you go back at the early days of Magic, that's how it was too. Like they would only give you a card title. I mean, you go back and listen to like Anson Maddox or some of these early alpha Magic artists, they would just give you, and I think I want to say maybe Jeff Menges mentioned this too when I interviewed him, that like you would only get the title, or like there'd be a whole bunch of titles and they'd be like, hey, so which ones do you want to do? And then the artist would be like, oh, this one sounds cool. Like I have an idea in my head on this one or that one, right? So it's somewhat similar to that. So I think Eric gives them like a 1 or 2 liner, and like in talking with several of the artists, that's been very consistent too. They're like, oh, you really didn't tell me much. You just said like, make it, there's like a wizard in the forest, or something like that, right? And then they just come up with it. And then like I think some of them they'll do, like when I interviewed Elvira, she talked about how she would typically do 3 different sketch variants with her concept, and then she would ask Eric which one he liked the best, and then they'd settle on that, and then she'd go off and do it. But yeah, I think there's some twists on that with some of the artists. Not all of them offered 3 different variants. Some just kind of like played with some ideas and then threw it over the wall and said, Eric, what do you think? And then sometimes he's like a great art director himself too. He did that with Path of Exile and Grinding Gear Games. So he has like a really good vision and a just kind of like a style and understanding of how like a game piece should look. It's got to have like a central focal point, like when you're playing a game. I think there's been some examples where maybe the card was too generic or it didn't have like enough of a striking focal point to match how it would be used in the game. So sometimes there's been some tweaks based on that, and they all like this one here. It's got a very central figure,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it, like you could, if the background, these other horses in the battle scene were more pronounced, that could dilute it. But like the focus, this is the seasoned sellsword, and the focus of that card is this character and what it does. I forget exactly what the final mechanic was. Like it says something about it goes to the highest bidder. So there's like in some way your opponent can seize control of the sellsword. But yeah, as an example, that's basically it. Really high level description, and then a little bit of back and forth with the artist to fine tune the details. But the artist pretty much come up with it. And sometimes he'll tweak the game mechanic based on the artist's concept as well. So
that's really cool, because that's like truly collaborative, that he's willing to change something about the card to make it fit the art. But do the artists appreciate that? Or any one of them like frustrated with not having more specific, or do they just love running with that freedom that he gives them?
I think like almost all of them absolutely love it. I think some can find it a little nerve-wracking, like hoping he's going to like it and that it's on track. But I think a lot of the experienced artists kind of like have a vision for what they want to do and confidence in their work, that they love the freedom to go express it and do it how they want to do it. So that is an appeal. And like if you listen to some of the artists that have not, like gotten away from doing Magic and other TCGs, some of them left because they were so frustrated that they were kind of pigeonholed into a box and like a very specific lore and concept that it was losing its creative integrity, and they'd rather do book covers or some other genre of art where they had more freedom to express what they're doing. So they do absolutely love the traditional hand painted aspect of it, and the creative freedom, I think, are 2 major selling points. I don't think he's going to have any trouble convincing artists to come join the project.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
No, that sounds great. What is the deal between Sorcery and the artists? Do they own their own art, or is Sorcery buying the art from the artist and take ownership of it, or what's the deal?
The artists own the copyright, which is great too, because a lot of other games, they don't own their own copyrights at all. They kind of forfeit that. So they're paid for the commission, but then they forfeit the copyright to the creator, and then which limits them. I mean, maybe if they ask permission, they could go print playmats and do prints or hand embellished prints, like a lot of things we're seeing in Sorcery now. But in Sorcery, they own the copyright themselves, so they can do all those ancillary products and whatever they want. I think the company Eric's Curiosa does like reserve the right to use the artwork for marketing. You know, that's how they're able to print it like on the pre-con box and the booster box. And, you know, they offered playmats through the Kickstarter campaign. So I think that was part of the contractual agreement. But that's just use of the artwork for marketing or products. But other than that, you know, the artists can do playmats or they can do whatever they want. If when you own the copyright, you could do whatever you want with it, you know, only limited by your creative ideas.
Yeah.
So
that's great because sometimes we hear about artists being, you know, poorly paid and seizing copyright, and then some piece of art becomes really, you know, iconic or spectacular, and they can't do anything about it. They can't use it for their own creative purposes. So it's great to hear that Sorcery are treating the artists nicely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you think is like has been the most unexpected thing with dealing with all of this art? Do you have like a good story or anything unexpected that you've come across, either with the sample cards or with the art or anything like that? Because I mean that's a whole different experience and not something that is like something you do with your day job, as I understand. It's not like it's not even close to being anything about art, right?
No, yeah, I have an engineering degree, undergrad, electrical engineering, and then I did do an MBA, Master of Business Administration, like a couple years out of school. So I've always been into like business and investing, but yeah, my day job is very different than this stuff, and like I didn't really, you know, I was just like a fan of Magic back in the day and art and TCGs, you know. So I like when I first heard about Sorcery, I didn't really have like a business interest per se. I just wanted to own all the cards, and I was like begging Eric to have like a very cheap like full art set, like the old Frazetta cards. You can buy the whole set for $100. I was like, just do that, man, like as like a just for the Kickstarter at least, like let me have all the full arts for like $150. So I just was like a collector at heart, really. But yeah, so like I guess so things just kind of evolved like as I kind of built a network and a community and around the website, and then getting into YouTube and stuff, and then really the like artist relationships lent itself to working with them to help. Like a lot of them are like up and coming artists, like younger artists outside of the MTG realm, so they're not as well known, or they might be well known in their general region or niche. Like a lot of them are pretty accomplished, like in Europe and different parts of the world. But they've never done a TCG before. So I figured like with my network and my platforms and stuff, I could help build awareness for them. And then it just became logical and made sense to also help them market and sell their work. So it was like the original paintings and sketches and things at first. And then others, like I guess like the unexpected would be this hand embellished prints is like some things I've done recently, like with Severin Pignot. I did the Philosopher's Stone, like that we did a series of 10 where we had this idea to digitally remove the stone and then completely hand paint it. And now we're doing another series where we're doing something similar with like, I really like these crossover concepts where you kind of like intermingle the gameplay with the art design. So you take like two different game pieces or artworks in the game, and you take the game mechanic and you try to convey that in an artistic illustration. So the first one I did of those was with Kaio Calazans, who's actually on the stream here, or he was earlier. I saw him commenting, where he took the Rail Dromedary, you know, the camel one.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kind of roaming through the desert and there's nothing going on, right? And then he took the Doomsday device and he painted it on the back of the camel, because there was like an early like live stream Q&A type thing that Eric did where he talked about how there's like this like ho-hum dromedary that doesn't really do anything. It's just like a cheap to play camel that has no effect, right? It's like it's kind of weak. It doesn't have like a high power level and it's cheap to play. But then you could use it as a vessel to transport the Doomsday device. So he did that with the Doomsday device. It's like a series of 3 that he did, and it's kind of like an evolved concept where you have the camel carrying the Doomsday device, and then it explodes, and it like basically blew up the camel, and you see like pieces of the Doomsday device scattered all over the field. And it was like an embellished print. And I wasn't sure if there'd be a market for that at all, because it's kind of like an oddball idea that I haven't really seen in other games. I think there's sometimes like artists will do like remarks, as they call them, where they'll do
Yeah.
embellishments and enhance certain pieces of the original artwork. Like I did that with Severin for the elemental avatars, where she kind of accented some of the nature elements and things like that. So it makes it feel like an original at a lower cost point. So it hits like a different market segment, so people can afford something that has that personal touch from the artist without having to spend potentially several $1,000s for the original, right? But the crossover concept is like a whole nother level on top of that, where you can like look at the cards, the game mechanic, and really have like a fun, flavorful type piece of artwork that you could put on your wall as you're also realizing that mechanic in the game play. So that's a lot of fun. Like I don't have the artistic chops myself, but I have some creative ideas, and to be able to work with the artists who do have the talent and the skill to execute it is like a dream come true. It's so fun, you know?
Yeah, that's like the childhood dream. I mean, getting to get involved with it at that level, that must be really cool. Also, because it's really beautiful. I just saw the recent thing Savine did with the new stone. It's really beautiful. It really enhances that other art, combining the two pieces together. It is really gorgeous.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was really exciting. Like we had a rough idea. That card was first called Predestination, and then they changed it to Kythera Mechanism. And there's this device called the Anti-Kythera Mechanism, and Anti-Kythera is a Greek island, basically. So they found this sunken treasure there, and there was this Anti-Kythera Mechanism was what they ended up calling it. And it was like, I don't know, a century or two ago it was discovered, and it was like an astonishing scientific breakthrough where that Anti-Kythera mechanism was used well before they thought this technology was even discovered or like developed in real life. So it was like an astonishing find, and it was used like the stars and the galactic elements to do time, like to tell time. So the idea on the Philo stone was to replace the stone with that galactic stone, because the Philosopher's Stone itself is about alchemy, and that has real life lore too. One of the great things about the game is a lot of the real life lore elements. So now taking it with the crossover approach and replacing the stone with the Anti-Kythera mechanism is like just kind of a cool idea, mixing alchemy and that real life history. And it came out beautiful. So it was just like a rough idea. I was like, hey, maybe we should do like a planet for the stone, or like some kind of galactic scene. And then she came back with that proof of concept that I shared recently on some of the social media sites. And I was like blown away. I was like, that is striking.
It is. It really is. Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about if we just pivot to the whole content creation thing? What do you think our role is as content creators working with sorcery or for sorcery? What's your whole philosophy about the content creation and the game, and what our relationship should be?
I think it's really important. You know, there's a few content creators, Ted's Basement and Magic Historian. It's cool. These guys are joining in and supporting each other.
Yeah.
They have some big time channels too. So like the company for the past, since it started, really, there hasn't been a huge emphasis on a big marketing push. And some people are saying like, oh, that's, they're missing an opportunity, and there's all this competition with all these indie games and Lorcana and all this, and they're blowing it. Like even I was concerned that they were going to lose so they had this massive Kickstarter campaign back in March 2022, and huge momentum on a $4 million campaign, right? And I was worried that was going to atrophy and attrition over time if they didn't like pour the gas on, so to speak, and put the pedal to the metal and keep like generating interest. I was like, hey, Eric, just put out like a picture of one card every week. There's 400 cards, like one card a week. You're not going to reveal too much of the set, and it will keep like the interest alive. But yeah, like they were reluctant to do so because they didn't have product to sell. And they were getting like inundated with requests. Like everyone wanted to buy the product, and it was like a real bad feel for everybody that they couldn't buy it. So I think us content creators that have like filled that void in that niche have kept the interest alive, through the YouTube coverage like you guys do, and the Facebook group has grown steadily. Up to 1,500-ish now people. And like I always like, my goal is always to post at least one thing every single day since the day I created it back in, I don't know, what was it, first week of February last year. And that has helped keep the interest. Like a lot of people have told me privately that like, I was almost out on sorcery because I didn't know what the hell was going on. And, I thought some people just like gave up on the project and just thought it was You know, like they didn't care to put information out, or there was like weird and shady stuff going on in other games. People just forget and lose interest, right? So they said like it's helped, like the coverage we all do has helped them maintain interest and excitement in the project, and it's been very important for the artists too. You know, like a lot of their work is now more valuable. But yeah, in terms of like engagement with the game, I think we'll have opportunities to showcase the product like most content creators do. Yeah, life after alpha release will be a lot different. It'll be interesting to see what the dynamic is there, especially like with, I think it'll be important, especially important too, with the 1 year release cadence too. Keeping the interest going and coming up with creative ideas to say, you know, people are enjoying this and the game's growing. I'm sure it'll be successful.
Yeah, but it might also make it difficult to be a content creator because, I mean, you constantly have to develop new ideas, figure out stuff to do because there isn't like, oh, it's a new hype, it's a new set every other month. So you sort of have to keep the ball rolling yourself. So what do you think that Aries Curiosa or the team could do to maybe assist us as content creators for the game? Is there anything we could work around, something they could do to perhaps help create more content or interest?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like a lot of games like leverage their content creators to showcase the product. So I think like some in early going that have like established themselves as like a consistent creator will be getting, you know, some got the alpha precon decks and then it'll be the booster boxes. But then it'll be interesting to see for the next cycle, like Arthurian Legends, what is the like the lead up campaign that they're going to pursue. Like, are they going to have, like you see like in Flesh and Blood, for example, like all these content creators come up with these little video snippets. And like, I think what's cool about that is it seems like their design team at Legendary Studios gives the creator like some edited video that's pretty polished and exciting with like music and theatrical things going on, and then all of a sudden the creator comes in and is like reading the card mechanic. So like the burden of the knowing the technology and knowing how to do like a polished video editing isn't so much on the creator. Like me myself, I don't do any video editing whatsoever. Partly because like I don't have the technical skill. Like it would take me some time to learn to do that, but with 3 little kids and stuff and like all the platforms I have going on that I'm trying to nurture and feed, like I just don't have the bandwidth to like take that on. And I like an improvisational style anyway, but I'm just trying to envision, like, if I showcase a product, I have a lot of, like, artist insights and stories, and that's kind of my niche, but I don't have, like, the technical ability to do a real polished video. So that would be one way that the company could help us, or just, and that's, like, a reason, too, to, like, spread it wide and far. Like, everyone has their own niche that they focus on. Like, mine is art and collecting. They definitely should lean on, like, a game playing channel. That's a suggestion I made to Eric recently, that like that one Becca
Scott.
Yeah, Becca Scott. She did like a real nice, like 10-minute, like concise, very well polished video. But the only thing that I would like say was lacking there is an example of like the very flavorful gameplay. So if you could come up with like that Rel Dromedary idea, carrying the Doomsday device and exploding, or like the Pudge Butcher dragging across a minion, or like something with splash damage or blowing up the realm, like that's the stuff that differentiates Sorcery and makes it really compelling.
And flavorful. I mean, it was really good and was really well produced, but it was also very generic. I don't know if that's the right word. There wasn't a lot of like the flavor.
Yeah. If I was like, I was trying to put myself in the shoes of someone just like discovering Sorcery for the first time through her channel, and like it would probably be like, oh, that art looks awesome, and then again, like, because that sells itself very easily. And then if people go and look further into the game, then they'll learn like how innovative and creative the game design is, and the different aspects of traversing the realm, and the attack engagements and movement type aspects. But yeah, it doesn't come across in a video like that. So I think they could lean into that some more, because I haven't really seen that at all, other than like people verbally talking about it, like Eric or some of the other content channels. But if someone could demonstrate that, I think that's an opportunity. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think also it's really interesting that you've been into the creating of the content for such a long time. Do you see like any obvious places or areas of Sorcery that would need more content creation apart from like gameplay? Is there anything else that you would love to see pop up for Sorcery in terms of content creation?
Yeah, I think the gameplay is the one that really comes to mind. I think some guys are doing some good examples of, well, right now it's on Tabletop Simulator as
Yeah,
well. That's always a challenge to like showcase gameplay, I think.
yeah,
I saw
absolutely.
like, did you guys ever play Hearthstone by any chance?
Yeah, I dabbled a little in it, but I it's I just really like to have have the cards in hand,
Yeah.
having this physical product. It just does something else, and having only digital cards, I think it becomes a little stale.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, it was a fun gameplay.
Yeah, the only reason I mention it is they would have these like big tour events, right? And they'd have like really polished broadcasters, even though they were community members, they were very articulate people and they did a real good job covering the game. And I was always really impressed with like their camera angles. Like you could
Mm,
actually see, and maybe it's because it's a digital game, it's a lot easier, but you could actually see the cards in the player's hand, and they did a great job giving you like a play by play, like watching a football game, the
Yeah,
like annotating and like understanding their decision, like why they made the play that they did and why the deck was constructed in the way it was and some of the synergies of the cards or what card they might be looking for next. So like I think there's opportunity to evolve to that. Like right now we have some basic just kind of like videotaping people playing on Tabletop Simulator, which is like step one. But like once more and more people dive into the game and have real tangible cards in hand, maybe you'll have like deck tech videos, like,
yeah,
trying to come
absolutely.
up with new synergy concepts and stuff like that. I think that'll be really good for the player base.
Yeah, and much like Flesh and Blood has as well, they also do some really great, big, pro tours, and there are people commentating on it, and they're
Hmm.
getting better and better at showing the cards, so you can actually follow, the strategy behind the play. I think that's really great, and I hope we get to see that for Sorcery as well.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yep.
yeah. But definitely having a big digital platform, having a digital game on top of having the physical card game might also be a really good idea because, well, in our local game store, they started having Flesh and Blood, and then it just dwindled out of the the available wares that they had. And when we asked them why aren't you supporting Flesh and Blood, they were like, well, there's not really a community for it, and it's hard to sell. And I could fear that sorcery might have some of the same problems, at least in Denmark, that it can be really hard to get new players to play the game. And I think maybe having a digital platform might be a great way for new players to try the game out before they go buy a lot of cards.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and clearly Eric has the technical chops to pull that off. If anybody, coming from a video gaming background, so I think it's very possible eventually, but I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. Just by the
No,
the size of the team, it's fairly tiny still, and like he's got a lot to learn, I'm sure, just from like the business aspect of launching a TCG, all the fulfillment aspects, all the partnering relationships with retailers, with content
absolutely.
creators. There's just so much to like flesh out and make sure that's really tight and sound as a strong foundation, and then maybe scale
Exactly.
into digital down the road at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
also, just right now, I think I would imagine there's a whole thing about getting the right team together, hiring people, making sure you have the right people on the right, positions so you can develop
Hmm.
the game further. And I definitely think they're under a lot of pressure because they're not that big a team yet. So I would imagine that's also on the top of the list, just making sure we get some product in our hands soon and that the next couple of sets are really solid in terms of gameplay, mechanics, and art.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I wonder is like when he left Grinding Gear Games, typically there's like some period of time where you can't poach employees.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's like 2 years, and then all of a sudden he's going to be able to grab some of his buddies, that are super creative, like that were on his design team. He was the creative director. So although they don't need the help in the creative design area, other than taking some of the time burden off of Eric, I imagine. I mean, he's got
Yeah.
great vision himself, but I'm sure they could use game designers and business type people, that can help him
Yeah,
with the
and
business aspect. Yeah.
maybe also like a community manager again,
Mm.
because it would definitely be
Yeah.
nice to have someone just dedicated to maintaining relationship with content creators, players, just making sure that the right information at the right time gets out.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a critical hire. And like, I think losing, you guys knew Simon. I don't know how long you've been in the Discord.
Yeah,
If
I
you're,
did.
yeah, Simon was like a really good guy. And Yeah, that was a tough loss because like he started off as the community manager, I guess was his official title. So people just thought he was like only responsible for keeping the peace in the Discord and moderating the Discord, so to speak, right? But like he actually has a lot of industry experience, and
Yeah.
like he came up with a lot of the great ideas, like the Curio cards, I believe was his idea, like licensing with Frank Frazetta, and then also having the industry experience to know how to go to market, like the marketing aspect and like strategic partnering with a printer, with distributors, that kind of stuff. Like he has experience in those realms, so that's tough. Like I'm hoping they'll hire someone in that regard that could really help Eric, because Eric's like video game realm. I'm sure he has a ton of connections, but TCGs are a little different, right? So the business
Yeah,
aspect could help.
and exactly, and
Yeah.
TCGs really are their own special niche about maintaining that balance between players, collectors, possibly investors, making sure
Yeah.
that everybody can play the cards, but there's also some interesting things like curio cards that people really want to collect and crack back more boxes to make sure
Hmm.
they get something. And I think that's a very specific thing to the TCG space that you don't really find anywhere else. So
Yeah.
definitely having someone with that industry experience is an absolute must going forward, I would imagine.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I think they will be hiring, as time goes on, and hopefully beta will be a great success and profitable for them. And then beta is kind of like an extension of alpha, so it's not going to be a ton of difference other than these avatars, which was kind of a shocking change. We could talk about that if you want to, but then Arthurian Legends will be the next big expansion, and I think we've seen a couple reveals from Jeff Menges and Elvira Shakarova. Like the art for that set is going to be, I
Yeah.
think, like
I'm like,
it's hard
sign
to
me
say
up
like a
for a
step
few
up from
cases.
alpha, but yeah, it only gets better. Like it's really stunning.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think I love the vibe of Alpha not being, forced into one theme, but being a
Hmm.
lot of different things. But I also really enjoy seeing that Arthurian Legends is it like a themed set. It feels really
Yeah.
great.
Hmm.
Yeah, also having this high fantasy world and having it really loose. I think that's something I have been asking of Magic at some point, because I remember around Throne of Eldraine, I got a little tired of it. Like, oh, now we have fairy tale themes, and we had Grego themed in Theros, and all these themes, and there was not anything just binding the themes together in the long run. And that was something I was really looking forward to. So having this open high fantasy world, I think it's really nice, and it feels it feels good going back to the roots in this aspect in the TCG.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting if they stick with like a focus theme like Arthurian Legends or go back to another open type format too. I guess themes can be incredible, like if it's an exciting one. If you're into the theme, it's a home
Yeah.
run. If it's not
Yeah.
really your thing, it might be like kind of meh for some people. It seems like a risk, pros and
Yeah.
cons, right?
But I mean, who isn't into knights and
Yeah.
heroic stuff and lots of cool relics? I would imagine we're getting some of the maybe Excalibur, and
Hmm.
I could definitely see them really stretching that theme out and making it a lot of fun, both visually and also in terms of gameplay.
Yeah, yeah, right. The gameplay, like the real life lore, like how that can manifest into like a game and the mechanics, will be really fascinating. I think there's a lot of like creative possibilities too. I think that's at first I was I've always played traditional TCGs like Magic, Hearthstone, things like that. So like I never played like a grid based type game. So now people are speculating like, is this a board game? Is it a TCG? Is it a hybrid? Um, and like at first I was like, grid based game, I don't know. Like it probably wouldn't be like the first thing I'd want to go try given my background in conventional games. But now like, and I played enough of like, I too like refuse to play the tabletop simulator. So I've seen other people play, but I don't want to play the simulator. So I haven't done that. But like I've played enough games where I could read the card mechanic and like understand enough like how the game works and like the potential in it and the creative design. And now like I think the grid style gameplay is like amazing and like super exciting and adds a whole new dimension that carves out its own niche and can be popular in its own right and doesn't have to compete head to head with some of the big three, as you say.
Yeah. And I think as long as the grid is working for you and not against you, I think it's really interesting because it provides a lot of opportunities to sort of, create different mechanics that affect the board state as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely very cool.
But yeah, it's
Yeah.
going
One
to be
I
interesting to see if it survives, because we
Mhm.
had Genesis, that was also a grid game, and that unfortunately has gone out of business.
Yeah.
So having Sorcery, being a new game, being old school focused in the art, and being a grid game, I think they might have some challenges in the future, but I hope the art is going to make up for these challenges and just have people, be drawn in.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of possibilities they could lean into and expand on the realm itself as well.
Yeah.
Like Path of Exile is like the dungeon crawler style game, so I'm sure Eric has a lot of creative ideas in that regard. But like if you could imagine like a playmat that has like a terrain on it, and it could be one of the Atlas artworks, right? And then you maybe leverage that terrain, right? And that causes some navigational limitations. Like if there's a river, you can only traverse it on a bridge for like an earth-based creature, or if it has airborne, you can get over the river. Or it's like one of the water cards can like swim across
Yeah.
it, or like
Yeah.
go under it or something, right? Like that would be pretty cool. Like too, I think there's like a whole like new space they can explore in that regard too, that we probably just scratching the surface. So it'll be very interesting over the next several sets to see if they go down that path as well.
Yeah, and it's definitely, a great opportunity to be able to add that to your game as well, because you can add a lot of mechanics, but the other TCGs that don't have a grid can't do anything of the sort. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yep. It opens new doors for sure. Yep.
And maybe also for the artists, because it would be nice too to have some, big grids to play on that are, of good quality and well produced with some nice art on them also, because some of the other games where you get this little paper fold out thingy, and it breaks really fast and it becomes quite the annoyance. So I hope they also are thinking already in having the right equipment for the players, so we can just start gaming and then have some fun with some nice quality products.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Someone was
So,
asking here, like when they're listing the stores, when can they buy beta? um, So, Team Covenant's got their pre-sale going on through this month. They have that store in New Zealand. Geek Culture, I think, is the distributor, but presumably some retailers and LGSs are selling it down in, I think it's New Zealand or Australia, one of the two. They're selling it down there. But yeah, there's going to be all types of U.S. retailers for beta, and it would be interesting. Timing-wise, we don't know. They say they're going to do like an international release all over the world all at once on sometime in September is like the notional target, but yeah, I don't know like how soon they're going to announce it for other stores. Maybe it's when this Team Covenant pre-order agreement expires at the end of the month. Maybe we'll see some announcements in May, or like after Alpha's out, they'll start, I would think, leaning into beta and saying like, oh, it's out there now. People are getting excited. They're seeing the product. They want to buy it. They're going to have to get the word out on where you can do that, right?
exactly. I would also imagine they have an easier time, getting people and stores to sign up for beta as soon as they see that alpha is actually doing well, that people are interested, that people are asking. I had a quick just discussion with a local store here in Denmark and was just asking, I can see you're on the locator on the website. So are you getting sorcery? What are you going to do? What are your plans? And they were really interested, but they were also a bit hesitant. And they were like, we're just going to get the product and then we can see what happens. So I imagine that
Yeah.
post alpha is going to be the time to get more distributors on.
Yeah, I think that's pretty typical. Like I've talked to some stores and they're like, we would never buy any Kickstarter. Like they don't care how successful the Kickstarter campaign itself was. They'd rather wait until the game's a success and then carry it. Like even in Flesh and Blood, and actually you mentioned Genesis. Like I listened to, and like I only care about sorcery really, but like I'll still go like casually like look into other TCGs just to
Sure.
understand the TCG market as a whole. So like when I heard some stuff about Genesis, never really looked into it in a lot of detail, but then when the guy announced kind of like suddenly that he was packing it up and shutting it down, I listened to some interviews that he had done, and he was talking about how like he would have to like do like a road show basically a few years back and go like store to store and really sell the game himself, like you see the guy from Cryptic doing, and that's approach that some take, but it was hard for him just to get into like one or two stores. It was like one or two literally at a time, whereas I think it's pretty significant that there was over 100 that backed the Kickstarter for
Absolutely.
Sorcery. So that's one leg up. But then, yeah, a lot are still going to be reluctant and want to wait for it to be a success. And they're probably also a bit wary about the release cycle, one per year. There hasn't been a lot of detail really on like the product roadmap. Like we talked about earlier, when's the next set coming? When's Arthurian Legend really coming? How it'll be distributed. So there's a lot of risk in that when you just don't know. So I think like stores will wait until they at least know the beta strategy and then make an assessment of, you know, are they confident? And then like, how do they deal with the once per year releases? Are they going to print in waves? It's a problem for artists too. Like I work with a lot of artists to help them sell their paintings, and they're like already painting 1 or 2 sets ahead right now. So we won't even be able to sell those paintings for another 1 year at least. So that's pretty tough. So that's why like the copyright does help, as we were talking about earlier, because there's other creative things we can do with the alpha product, with hand embellished prints or crossover concepts and things like that to fill the void. But from a gameplay mechanic, from like an LGS perspective, they're going to have to get creative to keep the interest alive in their local community, figure out how to monetize, like how they're going to carry the product and do so in a profitable way between releases. So a lot, we'll see what comes up.
Absolutely. Also, because the store that I spoke with, they were also like, it sounds great. We love the art. We love everything about it. But we also just want to open a box ourselves, make sure that the quality is there, because we're not going to be selling something that we don't think is good enough. So they were also really, you know, emphasizing that they need to have some product in hand before they're going to make any further arrangements.
Yep. Yeah, and you think about it, you want to hold the product in hand too, and feel good that the print quality is good and actually play the game. You know, a lot of these stores aren't going to go on Tabletop Simulator and mess around. They're going to wait for the cards. So, yeah, I think there'll be a lot of change over the coming months after Alpha's out there. Certainly with the Innkeeper backers, they'll get the Alpha Precon decks. They can play around with those. And then definitely after Beta, because that'll be more mainstream. They could order a lot more of it if they choose to and actually try it out. And then I think, it's saying like the how to perceive Beta versus if there will be a revised, because it seems like Beta is a stepping stone. We still have not gotten it into the store's hands, right? So they're going to experience it for the first time largely through Beta, maybe not necessarily so through Alpha, since that's more like individuals, kind of early adopters, just kind of taking a chance on it or whatever. If they pique their interest, they want to give it a shot. But from a store perspective, the big go-to-market push could be this revised set potentially, or maybe Arthurian Legends if Beta does really well, you know? So...
Yeah, I think so. Also because revised, I think Eric has spoken of something along the lines of revised that's going to be more adjusted, where Beta is pretty much about the same as Alpha with a few tweaks. Also about the avatars. You mentioned the avatars yourself. So what's the whole deal about it? Because we both made videos on it, but just in case people don't know, what's going on with those avatars?
Yeah, that was an interesting development because they said like from the very get-go that the elemental avatars would be exclusive to the Alpha Precon decks. So at first people thought that they would only be in there. Then they clarified that the non-foils are exclusive to the Alpha pre-constructed decks, but then they'll have a foil variant in the Alpha booster boxes, which I think is smart, you know, because not everybody bought the precon decks.
Yeah.
So you want to get access to those avatars. It's a fundamental game piece as an avatar that you need to play, right? But then they said they're going to like completely replace them and retire. Like, so at first it was like, okay, they're going to retire the artwork. That's kind of cool, you know, it kind of like memorializes it as an Alpha exclusive. Anytime anything was only printed in Alpha, I think that makes it special for a collector.
Yeah.
That's really cool. But to then completely replace the art and the game mechanic, I think that's pretty bold. Yeah. But, you know, I think Eric just does what he wants, you know, what he believes in. And he wanted to take it in this direction with the hooded avatars to like kind of tighten that connection of player and art piece and say like, you are the avatar. So that's like a more tighter correlation if you have this hooded figure and you can imagine yourself as that person or that avatar navigating the realm and defending your territory and trying to conquer. So that's kind of cool in a way. It is kind of sad to see the elemental avatars go, but it also does make it cool as a collectible. And then I wonder for what happens then for like a revised, if there is one, or in beta. I don't know. Will they like? Is it still built around the elements? I'm kind of confused about it. What do you guys think from like how it affects it from a collector perspective and from a gameplay player perspective?
So I
And
think
were you surprised?
I was very surprised.
Okay.
And I think it's a big ask to get someone to pick up those precon decks and then tell them, oh, by the way, you can't play these in the next set of beta. If they're just playing in a store and they get to play these precon decks, they sort of get comfortable with the mechanics and everything, and suddenly you can buy beta, but you can't get those specific avatars. I think that might affect the gameplay a bit, but hopefully the other ones will be close enough that it doesn't matter too much. And I think as for the collecting, what do you think about it?
Oh, I actually thought it was kind of a shame because I thought the avatars were absolutely stunning. They were gorgeous to look at, and they had this really flavorful feel to them. They were connected to this nature element that they represented. And I thought it was a bit silly to replace them because I think with a little bit of fantasy and a little, imagination, you're going to be so enmeshed in the game that you don't need some kind of hooded figure to represent you. I think you're going to, just live that character and become it when you play. And we can see that in computer games and everything else. When people talk about what they're doing, they say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But no, your character is doing it. But it reveals that they're so into what they do that they have forgotten the line between who they are and the character. And so I think it's a bit sad that they had these gorgeous art pieces go, because I think the others are a bit more stale and not that flavorful, unfortunately.
Yeah, I like the other figures as well, but I also I wonder in terms of collectability, are they going to be out? Are people going to be playing enough with them that they connect with them and they want to collect them and give them a special value because they're from Alpha? Or are they just going to be, something that you used to play but not anymore and then slowly forgotten? I don't really know. I think it depends on how much people attach themselves to them and how much value they gain also on the market afterwards. What's
Yeah.
your feeling about the collectability of them?
That's a good point. I think it is like heavily levered to. I mean, the fact that they were exclusive to Alpha will always give it some aspect of collectability, but that could be damaged potentially if they become irrelevant for gameplay. Because like in early going, there's been some tournaments, right? And the Earth avatar has been like a fairly powerful and
Yeah.
a relative one worth playing, but the other three much lesser so, and the Fire one least of all, right? So if they don't support it and then they go to the hooded avatars and then they don't build on the mechanic that these initial elemental avatars had, they could further, make it further irrelevant over time. So that might hurt its collectability, or it might just be kind of like a niche collectible more so. Like you see, like in history of the big three, it's kind of like, I don't know, cards become iconic that were like super powerful in the early sets. But yeah, I agree with you, Jens. Like they're pretty special, Like it's like captures like the essence of Severin like so well, the way she mixes humanity with nature. It's just like so masterfully done, and there's so much depth and detail in those art pieces that they do feel like very iconic. And like I thought those were really the face of the game, but then it seems like Eric started to pivot more towards the sorcerer, that Francesca Burrell did. There's a sorcerer avatar, which is a hooded figure. And then it looks like she did the other hooded avatars that are to come. So now the sorcerer feels like maybe that's the face of the game. And then I don't know what to make of the 4 elemental avatars then. I hope they're still relevant somehow. That's why I hope there's still, I think, a potential maybe they could be reintroduced into revised. And then maybe they'll be relevant again and you'll want to play with them, and then they could build synergies with the original mechanic or change the mechanic, but revive the artwork perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe you have both the elemental avatars and the hooded avatars, and then you could just choose, or they have different mechanics and you get a different game experience as a result. I don't know. I hate to see them be irrelevant though and marginalized because they're such great artworks and they're the face of the precon decks, So
Yeah, exactly. But maybe they could be like reused and repurposed where they figure as a piece of art in a piece of art. I would love that sort of meta feeling. Maybe some later said they could be like hanging on the wall in the background of something. I would think that was absolutely amazing. It would be a great way to sort of pay a tribute to that original art.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I love that. pay a homage to it some way
Yeah.
within another. Like maybe Severin can like paint the little figure into one of her other art pieces in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe have like a museum or an art gallery as a site and then feature
Yeah.
those avatars. I think that would be a really cool thing to see.
Yeah. Awesome idea. Yep.
Yeah. So, do you know if the art team or the team behind the art, if they have done some considerations as to what might and might not be featured? Because we know in Magic that at the moment it seems there are some lines that are not to be crossed, and if you go look at Flesh and Blood, you can see that it has this much darker and more violent flavor to it. So do you know if there's been some discussion in Sorcery about what to show and not to show in the art?
I'm not aware of that at all, and I think like I'm of the personal mind as like an art purist that there should be absolutely no limitations in art at all. You know, like you probably don't want to get like too seedy with like full nudity. I would say, I guess, like graphic nudity. There is like a limit per se, but like you don't want to stymie like the creativity either. So I think they strike the right balance. I mean, a lot of Frazetta art has kind of like softcore nudity, so to speak. Like there is some nudity, but it's not like overly like graphic or like offensive to people, I wouldn't think. And they're using Frazetta art that has a little bit of that in it. So yeah, I know like Magic would shy away from something like that and be ultra PC about it, but I don't think like an indie game needs to take that stance. And yeah, as I say, I think Eric does what he wants, and he's like an artist. So he appreciates like the creative freedom in art. So I don't envision there being limits. I think he'll just let the market decide if they're put off by some of it, if it's too graphic or there's some basic nudity and that offends someone, then I mean, too bad. Like it's not for everybody. You can't be worried about appealing to every last person, right? I think he's like someone who's very true to his own vision, which is something a lot of us respect and admire about him, and we think makes the game stronger and differentiates it. So I think he'll stay true to that, and he'll accept the consequences. You know, that maybe it alienates a small part of the market, but it's not make or break for the success of the game. It could actually be a differentiator and an advantage.
Yeah. So do you have like an artist that you're scoping out that you would love to see do a sorcery card that hasn't done one yet? Because I mean, you have to come into contact with a lot of different artists. So maybe you've seen something that you think, hey, that person would be perfect for sorcery.
I like the idea that Eric suggested of Wayne Barlow, you know, doing more of the darker demonic artwork. He's got some pretty amazing stuff. But like I will say that like I actually like the idea most of all of discovering new artists that I don't even know exist right now. Like several of the artists in sorcery I never knew before. You know, like probably at least half or something. So that is the most exciting, I think, discovering new. So I'd actually prefer that more than like rehashing some of the old, even some of the old like legendary artists. You know, I think we got a good core set of them. He selected some great ones from D&D era and early MTG and stuff like that. But now like let's find more. Like some I think he literally just like was surfing ArtStation and discovered people like Truett Parrish and I don't know. I assume that's probably how he discovered Mikhail Nagy-Paul and people like that. It's kind of cool. He grabbed some people from the MTG Altars scene with Marta Molina and Elvira Shekarova and Kyle Calazans. So that's really great, leveraging people like that and giving them a chance to do full-scale artwork because they clearly demonstrate the talent. Like these altars look unbelievable. And the art proofs, like now they can do art proofs on their own cards, which is going to be really stunning.
That's pretty
impressive.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an exciting breakthrough for them. So yeah, I don't have like a specific name. I don't want to retread like existing artists. I want Sorcery and Eric and the team to show me like the new up and comers or like even like older artists like Severin, you know, that like I probably would have never discovered if not for this game. That's what's like the most exciting, like discovering these amazing artists for the first time because of this game, you know. I don't know. How about, do you guys have any that come to mind?
Yeah, I do have one. We've been talking about, I think maybe the same person, Rebecca Guay, who did a lot of the early elves and fairies in Magic the Gathering. And her style just feels so, I mean, old school is watercolory and just, it's very beautiful, very flowy, and I would imagine it would be beautiful. I would love to see one of her artworks as a full art card on Sorcery. I think that would be really cool. But otherwise, I think you're absolutely right. Discovering new people, giving them a break, and just letting them see what they can do, that would be really cool to continue that journey. And also, I heard Eric say that he found some of the artists via like metal albums and stuff like that. So
Great.
he's really, he's not limiting himself. He's just going everywhere where the talent is. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. The metal album cover artists are like they come up with some striking stuff that looks amazing on a TCG card. So yeah, like Dan Seagrave is absolutely amazing. Matthias Frisk is like another
Yeah,
one that
exactly.
like
I was thinking about Matthias. I think his
yeah.
artwork is really eye catching.
Yeah, like the Scourge Zombies and this one here. Minor Explosion.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not
That
coming
is
across
already
good.
iconic in my mind. It's
Yeah.
really, you see it once and then you'll just recognize it.
Yeah, like he does some absolutely amazing detail. Like when I saw that one in person, that was like it blew me away. I was like, wow, this guy is so good, and he's like super humble too. And he's like, yeah, I don't really like sell paintings. So he goes to like some local shows and stuff, but he's very casual about it, you know. And it's like those are like the best types of artists, you know. They're just like very humble and they're just like truly love what they do, and that's why they're so masterful at it. Like when I interviewed Ed Beard, I was like blown away when he was talking about how he like studied anatomy, almost like like an actual scientist, you know, like all the detail and just pouring over hours and hours of like trying to draw like all the different elements of a dragon or like some kind of reptile or something, and then just keep practicing, and then put away the reference image, try to do it from memory, and you kind of ingrain that skill in your mind. Like those are the people that are like truly all in on it and really hit the highest heights of their craft. And I think there's some artists like that, and it's pretty unbelievable to see like people like Kyle Calazans, you know, the level of talent he has as such a young guy. Mikhail Nagy-Paul too is like a younger guy that does like amazing stuff. So they're just like at the early part of their careers. Imagine where they're going to be in like 10 or 20 years. Or Elvira, you know, she was doing altars and like really got extremely good on a small scale. And now she's doing some large paintings for Arthurian Legends, and that's going to be next level. You know, whenever you go to a larger scale, you got to be damn good to make it like just come across right and get the detail right. Find that balance of like detail versus finding like a central composition that's going to work for the game. So yeah, a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely, especially if they're doing like art for the 10th or 15th or 20th sorcery set to see how far everybody's come and what new talent is going to be brought in by that time. It's definitely very, very cool.
Yeah, I hope they
Absolutely.
retain some of the early alpha ones, and they are so far. You know, for the next, a lot of them are working on Arthurian Legends and even the set after. Some like that were not, like I could kind of see why, because they're like, I think initially I want to say Brian Smith was not working on Arthurian Legends, and you could kind of see why. Like he's got pretty like
It's a
very
different
dark. It's like the
style.
darkest artist. Yeah, in Alpha I would say with like the Pudge Butcher and just some of the more graphic like hardcore paintings. But if they're going to do a Heaven and Hell, Angels and Demons, something like that, he'd be a slam dunk for that. And Eric's kind of mentioned that. He's like, yeah, I do intend to probably use most, if not all of these artists again, but he's going to pair them to the set that makes sense, you know, if it's a thematic set. So yeah, it'd be great to see what they do.
That makes a lot of sense. Also because, you know, if you're into the art, just you know, looking at all the cards and thinking, wow, this is great, and oh, I like that card too, and that card. And then you find out, wow, it's the same artist, and you just, you know, discover different artists and different styles that way. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope they're keeping the same artists and using a lot of them, so you have this, you know, this flavor and some consistency in the cards and how they look over time also.
Yeah, because
That would be great.
they stick to their style, you know. But then I think a lot of them have like a pretty broad range of ability too. Like when you look at Mikhail Nagy-Paul is the example that really comes to mind. Like because he did like the towers, you know, for the Atlas cards, but he also did like all those frogs. Like there's all this frog art in the game. He's done like rattlesnake, like viper snake type things. So he has like all these like Atlas cards, like Sinkhole is another one. It's like amazing landscape piece. And then he's got what else? I got like my website up on the other screen, but it's just like it's like amazing how everything is so different. So like he's like, yeah, these frogs, the frogs are pretty funny. I don't know what it is with Eric and frogs. I've been trying to figure that out, but yeah, he's really great with like lighting and composition. Cloud Spirit is another one that really stands out from him. So he's got some like darker ones and some lighter ones, but like some beautifully like when we see those frog arts, if they're still in there, I think they are. Those frogs, like I typically could care less about a frog. Like that'd be the last thing I'd ask for someone that paints. But like when you see it, like it's absolutely like amazing. It looks like so like realistic, but with kind of like a fantasy twist. And it's so like super vibrant too. Like Melissa Benson has that like really specific style where it's so colorful and vibrant. It really stands out. Like Mikkel can pull that off masterfully as well. So it's really cool. And then that makes him like diverse and able to adjust to future set themes in like a unique way where like you get excited and you're like, oh, I wonder what he's going to come up with next. That's the exciting part. Like I've been staring at this alpha art for a year and a half now. Now I'm like chomping at the bit to see Ethereum Legends. But the average person isn't like us, you know, they're just discovering the game for the first time. So they're going to enjoy alpha and beta for a long time. So.
Exactly. So what are your sort of plans for gameplay? Do you have a play group that you can just go, okay, guys, now we're playing Sorcery?
There are some local guys here that are like pretty active in my area. They're like the guys that are very active in the Discord and playing on Tabletop Simulator and these tournaments and things. Pure coincidence. I never knew who they were before. But that's also like I don't typically go to the LGS, you know, because my kids are too young and they occupy like all my like normal daytime. I only have the time like late at night, early in the morning, and then casually throughout the day sometimes. So playing is like a sacrifice I've had to make. You know, I feel like I almost got to choose like to support like the community efforts I do, create the YouTube content, like coming up with creative ways to post something compelling on the Facebook group every day to try to grow that and keep people interested. That all takes a lot of time and thought. So like, yeah, finding time to actually play is going to be a challenge. I hope to do it. Like I do have those alpha precons now, but I haven't like found the time to just sit down and give it a shot just yet. So I don't know.
What about your wife? Could you get her to play?
Yeah, I try, but it also is going to require like when the baby's napping, you know, there's like other like, and then like I got a 5-year-old boy that's like pretty wild and wants a lot of attention.
Yep, we have 3 kids, 3 boys, so you know it can be difficult to sort of plan around that. But it helps that we play together because then we can at the evenings just sit down and play some games.
Yeah, and also that they reached an age at the moment where they can actually start playing. So we're playing Magic now with the 2 elders, and it's such fun.
Great.
Of course, they are still, sore losers. And a lot of games goes like, okay, I can see you're becoming sad now. Should we just stop the game, or is it okay? No, we continue.
Yeah, you want to let them win, right? Yeah, that helps a lot when they become of age. Then I imagine I would definitely play more. But like it's something I want to do and make the time to do because it'll help in many ways to like talk about the product more completely, in terms of the cards mechanic. Or like even from like a selling perspective, like to really understand what are the best cards, like why, like if the original painting comes along, why that's a particularly special piece, because the people put more stock into cards that are more meta relevant. Although, I mean, personally, when I buy like art pieces, I buy what resonates with me, like personally. It's like, sure, it's an added bonus if it's like a super powerful card and we know that card's going to have value. But even if it's like an ordinary rarity card, if the art speaks to me in some way, it's still super awesome to own and display. Like it feels good. It just is cool. Like, it strikes a memory or some kind of connection that makes it fun. So yeah, I don't know. I'll get around to playing at some point. We'll see.
You have time. That's the good thing about once a year releases.
Yeah.
You have time to catch up and get some games in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe the true sign that Sorcery has, really gotten some attention and has survived is that when you're at your workspace, at one point, maybe, I don't know, 2 colleagues are going to pull out their decks and just start playing Sorcery on the... in the lunch or the canteen or something.
Yeah.
That might be...
it would be cool to see it being played, somewhere. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about having like real life people in cards? I don't know if you've seen it, but both MetaZoo and Flesh and Blood have done stuff with Rudy from Alpha Investments. So if you ever
Yeah.
see like a mic card in Sorcery,
They could do a Collector Arthouse card or something. I don't know, but like,
that's where
yeah, it is a
the
little weird
payments will
to.
go.
It's a little weird to incorporate like a real life person. I think it could be kind of polarizing, because there's a lot of toxicity. To be honest, like some people just don't like. They find reasons to dislike people.
Yeah.
So it could be off-putting to them. Like Rudy's like very polarizing. People absolutely
He's
love
a
him, or they'll
divisive
just like,
character.
yeah, or they just hate him for some reason.
Yeah.
So that could be a turnoff. Like, but he's a valuable partner, that's for sure, because he's got such a massive audience, and he's charismatic and entertaining. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that kind of concept fits all that well with sorcery. I think to me it would feel like they were straying from like the integrity of just normal art. Like all these artists, they're not going to be chopping at the bit to go paint Rudy or in some goofy pose. Like
But
these
it's a fun
MetaZoo promo
idea.
cards. That's like an odd thing. Like let them do what they're passionate about and don't stray from that is what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it would be great for this game. I think it can be fun and done as like a little side thing in the other games, but I feel like Sorcery doesn't have that sort of vibe where that would fit into it.
Yeah, even the one like of the game creator, like there's the Mike Waddell card, I think. There's also like a Richard Garfield card, and that's cool because he's such like an iconic kind of guy. But if they were to do like an Eric like card, it should be like I don't think they want to get into the business of doing a lot of promos either, too. That wasn't like a big thing back in the day for Magic. It's kind of like a modern, I don't want to say gimmick really, but promos can be kind of annoying too if you flood the market with those and you got to go like it forces your hand to some specific buying behavior to get it from some particular retailer. I don't know. Then it's a bad feel for people like, people in Europe right now. You're going to have a hard time getting that Team Covenant card or the Rudy card, or you're going to have to pay more, because of
and
VAT
if you're
and
a big
import fees.
collector, that's really annoying that you're not able to actually get your hand on. And especially because, Team Covenant getting that shipped to Europe would be really expensive because
Yeah,
you
you're going to
have
have
to
to get
pay,
it.
shipping, but also the import tax. And it would be,
Right.
it's just not feasible.
Yeah. So I think they'll be discretionary on promos and deliberate about doing it when it makes sense. And it does make sense, I think, at this juncture, because maybe they were part of partnership deals, like with Rudy, certainly. That's like a normal thing for Rudy, and that's a valuable partner to be promoting your game at release. So to give him a promo, I totally understand that. And Team Covenant has been a great supporter from the get-go, and they showcase the game well, and they seem truly passionate about TCGs and stuff. So I think those both are totally understandable and good moves.
Yeah.
But if they start doing it with everybody, it could get weird and it's too much. Or if they have like, you have to go, it's a good way to support the LGSs in some way. I don't know how they might approach that, but if you have to like go show up at Gen Con or something in the US to win a card, I'm glad like it's kind of cool they're offering a painting at Gen Con.
Yeah.
I thought that was
think
pretty
so.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But like if it was a special like a promo card where you had to show up at a certain convention to get the card, I don't think they should be doing things like that because not everyone has access. It's not practical, like with travel cost, and this is an international game already from the get go. So
exactly.
that that alienates people. Even the painting, some people are probably bummed out. They're like, oh, there's no way I can get to Gen Con, but I'd die for that. It's an Elvira painting. She's a big time artist.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's a cool one. What do you guys think of that as a reward? I thought it was kind of interesting. It's like true to like the game and that the art is so significant, but to be an award for like a player based event, I thought, I don't know, I had mixed feelings on that. Like, because some players don't care as much about the art. But then again, like, how else would you award it to somebody? Like, it's a game. You should have to play to win it, and crown of the victor is like a great choice, I think.
I think it's very, thematically fitting. I think it's really great in
Yeah.
that way. But, and also, as you said, being sorcery, I feel like it's a painting that's really fitting also. But, a player reward, maybe something else would have been more interesting. Maybe someone would have preferred a card. I don't know. But I think it's a very nice gesture from the company.
Yeah, I think if that gets if there's some way to like prominently show that painting at the event and a lot of people see it and they're like, wow, this game's giving away a painting for like a tournament, that could be eye catching and a good marketing approach.
Yeah,
And then people are like, oh, that game's using traditionally painted art. I'm seeing it with my own eyes,
Yeah.
and that's like, oh, let me go find out more about that. So hopefully that's really successful.
Yeah, and also being maybe if you become a long time player, having some artists, art on your wall, that must be absolutely great.
Yeah.
How can I sign up?
Yeah, how are we going to go to Gen Con without getting the kids along? That's going to be a difficult one.
Yeah, owning a painting is something really cool. Like there's not a lot of games are digital, so you don't even get that opportunity. So it's different. I was like other games. I mean, how many games do you really have the opportunity to go after? I wasn't buying original paintings for other games before Sorcery. Really, this is like the first opportunity in forever, unless you want to go pay like pretty high prices typically for Magic. I mean, it's getting expensive in Sorcery too, but it's early days and just feels different. I don't know. Maybe just got more emotionally connected. Like I'd rather go buy a Sorcery painting any day over a Magic one. I wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
But I think that's also why it's really great that you're doing a lot of collaboration with the artists. Getting people to have the opportunity to get like those sample paintings or sample cards or just like the illustration that are hand embellished. I think that's really cool, and it's definitely helping spreading the interest both of the art but also of the game. So I think you're doing a huge task also with posting so frequently and really doing a lot for the community. I think we're a lot of people behind Sorcery who really appreciate that.
yeah, thanks. Appreciate that comment. Yeah, and some of the people that bought like the original paintings at the auctions are store owners. So that's always really
That's
exciting
so
when they're like,
cool.
"Oh, I own a comic store or I own an
Yeah.
LGS and I'm going to hang this in the store." So that's huge. Like the King of the Realm, the guy that bought that owns a comic store in New York City.
Wow.
And then like another guy bought the Minor Explosion that I was showing. So I'm going to mail him that card from the Alpha Precons, but he's going to show that that painting's going to be hanging in his store, and he's like a big Magic store. So I'm like, nice, man. Like, get that hung up.
Yeah.
Show all the
That's
Magic
definitely
fans
going to get some
about
people
the new
in
game in
there.
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then, the hand embellished prints and stuff, that's cool too, because if a painting for like a few $1,000s is out of a price point, you get something else at a lower price point that's still like hand done by an artist, and it still feels special and unique. And it's they don't do a lot of them. Like Severin, like I convinced her to do a series of 10 on the initial Philo Stone, and she like even at that time she was like, this isn't like really my favorite thing to do, because they want to create new pieces
Yeah.
of work, right? It's kind of redundant, even though it's only 10. She had to hand paint that stone 10 times. But the first one was like a success, and I was kind of nervous on the first one. I was like, I don't know that something like this has really been attempted on this scale, where like something was digitally removed and completely redone. At least I'm sure it has in Magic and stuff, but I don't see that frequently. So it was a risk, and I was like, I hope this is successful, because then maybe her and other artists will want to do this too. And it was, and now she agreed to do this newest set of 10 with a different concept. And Kaio had success with his Rail Dromedary and a Doomsday Device, and it's something that more people can afford because it's much less expensive than a original painting, but it's still like really cool, and fun to own and display, especially like for a collector. Absolutely, someone like myself is into that. But I think I love the idea of like a game player having this crossover concept that mirrors a game mechanic. We covered that earlier, but I think that's like pretty unique and innovative that I really haven't seen in a game before. Have you guys seen something like that?
No, not at all. And I love the whole idea that is really riding on a mechanic that, and the whole idea also that it's just, this really not very interesting animal. And suddenly it's like an explosive device all on its own. I think that's
Yeah.
a really cool and fun concept.
Yep.
And I think people like stuff like that. It's really flavorful. And I mean, also more readily available than the big paintings because they are expensive and should be expensive. It's a lot of
Yeah,
work that goes
it's
into
art,
it.
of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Someone's
are you
asking
taking
if
note because somebody's 40th birthday is coming up, so you might.
I might
get a
have to
little
go
Melissa
find.
Benson hand sketch.
congrats. Yeah.
Thank
Big
you.
milestone. Yeah, someone's asking if Eric plans to keep the art physical going forward. I think that's a pretty safe bet. Yeah. Someone asked that before in the Discord, and he was like, yeah. Well, someone was asking about NFTs specifically, And he was like, NFTs didn't exist in the 90s, was his response. It was pretty funny. So he's trying to be true to that, and even like I did that interview with Kaio recently, and there was this amazing, it was called like Gamer's Head or something like that. It was like one of the paintings I included in the article, even though it wasn't sorcery. And it was like a beautiful, like really intricate painting. It was awesome. And I just like shared it in the official Discord, and Eric like responded to it and chimed in. He was like, "Oh, I actually thought about licensing that one, but it had modern helicopters and ships, so I couldn't use it." So he's like, even though he loved the artwork, he's like so true to like that 90s era theme and committed to that he will forego something like that. And if the art doesn't come out right, he'll also insist that it does fit like properly. Like I was talking with Brian Smith a lot, and he had to redo like a lot of his paintings because he was like one of these artists. He's never done a TCG before, and he doesn't do sketches. Like he didn't really think to do that. He's like, he's always just used to doing whatever he wants, and he sells his stuff on his own social media, and he's been able to make a career of it. He has enough of a following where that's been successful for him. So like when he got all these commissions from Eric, he would just like paint the whole thing and be like, "Here you go. What do you think?" And Eric would be like, "I think it needs this or that," So in some cases he could like modify it, but like painting's like high risk, You can only do so much with layers and layers of paint to redo it. So some he had to like completely redo from scratch. Which was kind of funny. Like I don't think that's a common thing, but it is true to like Eric's like purist like and integrity and like what he's going for. He'll stick to it no matter what. And I think that carries forward even in like the whole construct of sorcery with his business strategy, like the once per year release. That's unconventional. A lot of people think that's a big roll of the dice, super risky, but it's what he wants to do, so it's what he's going to do. Getting rid of the elemental avatars, he thinks that's the right play, so he's going to do it. So we'll see how people respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I mean, I think that's kind of the great thing about having a big Kickstarter is also he has the means to do and really follow through on what his integrity is telling him. And hopefully we're all getting a better game out of it because it will be really, in his vision and what he wants to do with the game that's going to be the driving force. So in that way, I think it's really nice that he has the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's important. I think every like majorly successful, creative, and innovative person is like true to their own vision, and they stick by it. They have conviction in their vision, and that usually works out. So yeah, we're getting some nice comments here. TCG Family, is that another channel? I'm not familiar with that one as much. I've been seeing him pop up lately, him or her, I guess.
Yeah, it's been fun reading all the comments, and thank you all guys.
It's really great that you were being here, and it was really cool that you were decided to host everything and that we could make it work.
Yeah, I set it to it says it's recording. I got this little icon on the right, so if you guys absolutely feel free to post it on your channel and do whatever you want. I might convert it to a podcast if it conveys well. Hopefully my audio is better. I played with the settings this time. I had some challenges in the prior few, but yeah, this is a bit of a test run. I'm going to have like a booster box reveal at some point.
Ooh,
and I think a lot of people are going to be doing recorded videos. That's like the norm typically, but I'm going to have like a big live event that I'm super excited about.
We're definitely checking in on that.
Yeah.
And that's also like a point that I made in our last video was that I really hope it's also going to be a community thing, that everybody's going to check in on each other, both content creators, players, everybody. Just see those boxes being opened. Let's see some art. Let's help each other out with the curios. I really think that would be a cool thing that we could get a tighter knit community out of it as a side benefit of the curios.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, the curios are going to be cool. They're going to see reveals of those, and we're going to be leaning on each other to authenticate that they're legitimate sorcery cards and asking the company, like, is this an altar or what's the deal here? I don't know. We don't know what the curios are, so I'm super excited to hit one of those. I hope, like, in my first reveal video, I plan on opening a bunch of boxes, like, over time, maybe once a week or something like that, or some cadence. Well, I'll play it by ear, but yeah, hopefully there's, like, some exciting hits. There's going to be like a few foils in every box for sure. So any foil is going to feel super awesome. And then to see it in the full art version on the back, I'm going to be like super excited about all those. But the curios, I can't wait. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thanks a lot for having us, Mike. It was wonderful talking with you and hearing all about this great art. So
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I appreciate your time too. We'll have to do it again sometime. Maybe after
Absolutely.
alpha release, things will get interesting and different fast, I'm sure.
I think so.
So.
Definitely.
And thank you
All
to
right.
everybody watching. It's been really great.
Yes, thanks everybody. Again, take care. I'll see you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.